comes to us all, but in Pennsylvania it's a rarity even for the condemned. Let me take you back, way back, to a state with one of the most peculiar death penalty histories in America. Pennsylvania, the Keystone State, home to 1,043 executions since 1693, sits third on the all-time execution list behind only New York and Virginia. Despite housing one of the nation's largest death rows, only 3 men have met their maker via lethal injection since the Supreme Court reinstated capital punishment in 1976. 3 men, 3 stories, 3 final meals. Let's peel back the curtain on the lives, crimes, and final moments of these walking dead men who exhausted every appeal and, strangely enough, all wanted to die. Keith Zettelmoyer.
The Department of Corrections says Keith Zettelmoyer and Leon Moser were both executed.
On a crisp spring evening in May 1995, 39-year-old Keith Zettelmoyer made history. Not the kind anybody aspires to. This troubled former security guard became the first person executed in Pennsylvania in 33 years, ending a hiatus that stretched back to 1962. Zettelmoyer's journey to the death chamber began on October 13, 1980, when he drove his friend Charles Devetsko to a wooded area near Harrisburg. Devetsko wasn't just any friend, he was scheduled to testify against Zettelmoyer in an upcoming robbery trial. 4 bullets later, Devetsko was silenced forever. After spending 14 grueling years on death row, something inside Zettelmoyer snapped. He fired his lawyers. He abandoned appeals. He begged the courts to let him die, claiming brain disease was making his prison life unbearable. In a twist that reveals the complexity of justice, even the victim's mother, Aldona Devetsko, fought to save his life, arguing that Zettelmoyer was mentally ill and shouldn't be executed. But Governor Tom Ridge, who had made enacting the death penalty a campaign promise, wasn't having it. On February 28, 1995, Ridge signed Zettelmoyer's death warrant, his first of many as governor. On his final day at Rockview State Correctional Institution, Zettelmoyer's last meal reflected simple tastes: 2 cheeseburgers, French fries with ketchup, chocolate pudding, and chocolate milk, a plain meal for a man about to make extraordinary history. As lethal chemicals flowed into his veins at 10:04 p.m., Zettelmoyer left behind final words that still haunt the Pennsylvania justice system. I ask that the people of Pennsylvania and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania please accept my 14 years of imprisonment and my execution now as all of my debts to society paid in full. 12 minutes later, at 10:25 p.m., Keith Zettelmoyer was pronounced dead, the first domino to fall in Pennsylvania's modern execution era. Leon Moser.
The State Department of Corrections says Leon Moser were executed in 1995.
Just 3 months after Zettelmoyer's execution, Pennsylvania prepared its death chamber again for Leon Moser, a 52-year-old former seminary student and Army lieutenant whose life had spiraled into unspeakable violence. Moser's crime still sends shivers down the spines of Montgomery County residents who remember that fateful Palm Sunday. On March 31, 1985, churchgoers at St. James Episcopal Church in Evansburg gathered for what should have been a peaceful service. Among them were Moser's ex-wife Linda and their 2 daughters, Donna and Joanne. What happened next was pure calculated evil. After the service, Moser asked Linda if he could take their daughters to visit his parents in Wisconsin. When she refused, Moser retrieved a bolt-action rifle from his car and executed his own family in the church parking lot. First shooting Joanne in the back of the head as she sat in his car, then turning the gun on Donna, and finally pursuing Linda toward the church where he gunned her down. The massacre was so horrific it triggered changes in Pennsylvania law, giving police more power to make arrests in domestic violence cases without needing to witness the assault firsthand. Like Zettelmoyer before him, Moser refused all appeals. At his 1986 sentencing, he told the court, "I just want to die. Just give me the death penalty, please, and have it carried out as soon as possible." It would take 9 more years for his wish to be granted. On August 16, 1995, Moser ate his final meal: 2 slices of pizza, cold cuts, pasta salad, a frosted cupcake, and Coca-Cola. Unlike many condemned prisoners who offer final words of remorse, apology, or prayer, Moser declined to make any statement whatsoever. The silent man with the simple meal became Pennsylvania's second execution of the modern era. Gary Heidnik. 4 years passed before Pennsylvania's death chamber was used again. This time the condemned was Gary Heidnik, a 55-year-old whose crimes were so horrific they would inspire fictional villain Buffalo Bill in the Hollywood blockbuster The Silence of the Lambs. From November 1986 to March 1987, Heidnik kidnapped 6 African American women and imprisoned them in the basement of his North Philadelphia home. He chained his victims to pipes, subjected them to repeated rape and torture, and even forced them to live in a water-filled pit in his basement. 2 women, Sandra Lindsay and Deborah Dudley, died in captivity. Lindsay died after being suspended by her wrists from a ceiling beam for days, while Dudley was electrocuted when Heidnik forced another captive to apply a live wire to her chains while she stood in water. The nightmare finally ended when captive Josefina Rivera gained Heidnik's trust enough to be allowed to leave the house briefly. She immediately contacted police, who discovered the House of Horrors at 3520 North Marshall Street. What made Heidnik's case even more disturbing was his double life. While torturing women in his basement, he posed as a bishop of his self-founded United Church of the Ministers of God, conducting Sunday services in the living room directly above his dungeon of despair. On July 6, 1999, Heidnik's day of reckoning arrived. For his last meal, he requested 2 slices of cheese pizza and black coffee, a surprisingly modest choice for a man whose appetites had been so monstrous. As with Moser before him, Heidnik offered no final words. After the lethal injection, witnesses reported that his face turned bright red before going ashen. When his death was announced at 10:29 p.m., unprecedented applause broke out among the witnesses, with one woman shouting, "Thank you, Jesus!" To this day, Heidnik remains the last person executed in Pennsylvania. Since 1999, Pennsylvania's death row population has fluctuated between 100 and 200 inmates, yet not a single execution has taken place. In February 2015, Governor Tom Wolf imposed a moratorium on executions, citing concerns about innocence, racial bias, costs, and the system's treatment of mentally ill defendants. Every person executed in Pennsylvania's modern era actively sought death, abandoning their appeals. Not one person has been executed in Pennsylvania against their will since 1962. Today, Governor Josh Shapiro continues the moratorium and has called for the legislature to abolish capital punishment entirely, stating, "The Commonwealth shouldn't be in the business of putting people to death. Period." Tracy Lomax, sister of Heidnik victim Sandra Lindsay, expressed mixed emotions about her sister's killer's execution. "I wanted him to spend some time incarcerated to see how it feels being imprisoned where no one could release him from his misery." Yet she acknowledged her healing journey only began after Heidnik was dead. For now, Pennsylvania's death row exists in a state of limbo. Men condemned to die but likely to perish from natural causes instead, their final meals never to be ordered, their last words never to be spoken. The 3 men who did walk that final mile, Zettelmoyer, Moser, and Heidnik, remain strange outliers in a system designed for death but rarely delivering it. When you execute an innocent man, knowingly execute an innocent man, you know there will be no more capital punishment in this state and possibly anywhere else in this country, Heidnik prophesied at his trial. Whether his prediction comes true remains to be seen. But for now, in Pennsylvania, the death penalty persists as a ghost, present in law but absent in practice.